All right, hello everybody. My name is Chris, and I'm just coming to you again. Going to do a special video today with a good friend of mine, Eric Huffman, aka Huff Goes to the Movies. So we are going to be going through 20 of our favorite movies today. So it's something I reached out to him a while ago about to try to put together, and thought it would be just a fun little exercise to go through 20 of the movies that kind of are our favorites and maybe mean the most to us. So this is not necessarily 20 of the best. So like if anybody has any umbrage with some of the movies that we're going to be picking, is just let us know. This is personal opinion, so it's just movies that we love. But yeah, tell them just a little bit about yourself and your own YouTube channel.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Huffman II. Most people call me Huff, and some people know I love going to the movies. Hence the name of my YouTube channel, Huff Goes to the Movies, where I do reviews of new films, older films. Gonna start digging into interviews with filmmakers and perhaps even putting some of my planned short films up there as well. If you're not into YouTube, then social media might be more your game. You can follow me on Instagram at Huff Goes to the Movies.
So yes, and I'll be sure to, when this goes up officially, put links down in the description so you can try to get at him. I also put links to my socials as well. But yes, like I said, we're going to be talking about 20 of our favorite films here.
Right.
So I will let you kick things off and let's start. And that also, I did want to mention that these are not necessarily numbered in order of like what
Correct.
our worst to our best or anything like that. So yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right then. I will start with a film that means a great deal to me. I remember going to see this. I remember my mother making a very big deal out of this when she took me. And I don't quite remember why she thought she could sell me on this movie any more than the commercials already did. But that film is Toy Story. This is, of course, Pixar's first feature film. This was a game changer as far as the format of animation is concerned. Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, like it is a franchise that is still going. And it is one of the few animated franchises that has an entry that's been nominated for Best Picture. I think Toy Story 3 is the best in the series. I think all the Toy Story movies are great. I think 3 is the best. But Toy Story holds a special place in my heart. And I rewatched it late last year. And listen, I have no notes. Like it's hard to find anything to complain about. So that one definitely makes it on my list for sure.
That's okay. Of course, being same age, being from the same generation, Toy Story was definitely a big deal as a kid. I can remember, I think I didn't get to see that in theaters. I think the first time I saw it was back when, if you remember, when movies used to come out for Disney, they would always have like the ABC premiere, like it was year afterwards, something like that. So I think that was the first time I saw it. And yes, it's one of the ones I loved, and it's one of those franchises that kind of just kept getting better, kind of until you got to the fourth one. But the fourth one is still a good movie, like,
right?
A pretty strong entry. I will say only criticism I have for that, which it kind of just speaks to the technology at the time. Pixar did not have babies down at that time, because Andy's sister is terrifying looking in that movie. But it's a minor nitpick. Like it's still a great movie that still holds up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I see your Disney picture and raise you mine.
Oh boy.
This one is First Kid.
Oh
Starring,
wow.
yeah, starring Sinbad.
Sinbad, yeah.
Yep.
Benton Harbor, Michigan native.
Yes. So this is one of those mid '90s Sinbad is a movie star runs that he had. So it was like this and House Guests and Jingle All the Way. And
Yes.
yeah, like I love this movie, man. Like from seeing it younger, it was one of those movies that it is like just a goofy comedy film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those movies that I got like way more invested in it than I thought it normally would. For those who don't know, Sinbad plays a secret serviceman that
Yes, he
gets
does.
put in charge of protecting the president's son, and hijinks ensues, basically. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a movie. I love the kind of the comedy in it, even though some of it's kind of corny and dated, for being the '90s.
It's very much a 90s movie.
Yeah,
That much is for sure.
yeah. But then I like that it has a little bit of a dark turn at the end of it too. So I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen it, but it gets serious at the end.
It's got some edge.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the reasons why I liked it too, because it's like it is a kid's movie, but it does have a little bit of an edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm starting out with.
Okay, we 19 more picks to go. We've done it. Are you taking the lead on 19, or do you need? I mean, we're not. These aren't ranked, but
I can go.
Okay.
So complete flip flop. So going from goofy 90s coming of age kind of comedy to Heat is going to be my next one. So Heat is one of the movies. Like there are a few movies that I have seen and feel that they meet the criteria of being like flawless, and Heat is a flawless movie to me. Like I think everything about that movie works. Of course, it was the first time you got De Niro and Al Pacino on screen together. Even though they're technically in The Godfather too, but they don't.
Yeah.
Scenes together. So this is the first time that they're like face to face together on screen. And just the way that the story flows. I think Michael Mann was at kind of the height of his powers. And it's just a really well directed heist movie from like beginning to end. And like I said, it's awesome, firing on all cylinders, and everything works in it.
Man, and he is one of those movies that like it's become such a reference point in the films that have followed. Like
yes,
like Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. I think his largest cinematic influence is probably Heat.
Definitely.
And hey, listen, if you're gonna be influenced by something, be influenced by something great.
Definitely.
I am curious about where I should go next, because you mentioned Michael Mann, you mentioned a heist movie, but I guess I'll, we give love to directors, so I will keep it in the vein of Michael Mann.
Okay.
And I have to go with Collateral. I think that Collateral is everything that I could want in a film. Like it makes great use of geography, almost exclusive nighttime setting. It commits to one aesthetic choice, and the performances are just, Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx are so well paired with each other in this movie. And it's one of those movies that I think if you go in not knowing anything about, you might think this story is kind of going all over the place. But like when that movie hits, it's oh shit moments.
Yeah.
It really just takes it up a notch. And it's so wild to think that like Jamie Foxx is like Academy Award winning actor now. But like Collateral was really that movie that really sort of signaled to a lot of people that, oh, okay, like this is for real.
Yeah, like he's a legit like actor. Yeah, that was definitely a turning point for him, and a bit for Tom Cruise as well, because he's really playing against type in that movie. Is like,
yes, he is
bad guy, like not just like you know, kind of
Yeah, no. He is vicious in that movie.
In that movie. So yeah, so it was a kind of moment in time for both of them at their careers where you can see like kind of them both, you know, doing different things that they were not accustomed to, or you know, audiences weren't accustomed to seeing them.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's wild. Like Heat is Michael Mann's classic, and to a lesser extent, I suppose Ali might be like the film that everyone sort of like, oh yeah, Ali, like got Will Smith, so like everyone knows about it. But Collateral to me is like just next level, man. I really do love it.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. Okay, so that's 19 out of the way. You want to go with your 18th?
Yes, and this works perfectly because with Heat, you not only mentioned a Michael Mann film, but a heist film. So I have to bring in a heist film here. It is Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11.
Okay.
This, I mean, listen, Steven Soderbergh, I won't say that he can do no wrong because he then went on to make Ocean's 12. But I will say, this movie just clicks. And whether it is the ensemble that really works together, whether it is Andy Garcia as the bad guy, whether it is the way that they develop the heist and the way that they subvert expectations with like what actually happens in that heist, it works. And I mean, it as a remake is such a great homage to Las Vegas. I mean, Steven Soderbergh's style really works for the story that it's telling. And, you know, like, I think it's a great metaphor for like film production and collaboration. And, you know, it's hard to not want to like spend more time with that crew. And as someone who I rewatched all of those movies earlier this year, and then I finally watched Ocean's 8. And I remember my wife hated Ocean's 8 so much. I was like, it can't be that bad. But like the fact that the movie keeps drawing its attention to the fact that it's not directed by Steven Soderbergh, like I think it's a credit to how great of a job he did, especially on that first film. I mean, like, I'm not a fan of 12 and I do like 13, but like with that first movie, I mean, the dude had just, I'm pretty sure, won an Oscar for Traffic. Like he had just done a great film the year before. So like shout out to Steven Soderbergh.
That's a good pick as well. That's a good pick. You don't get too many of those nowadays, like the big ensemble, you know, just kind of light, you know, it's not really, you know, wasn't it's a remake, but wasn't some big franchise.
Yeah. It's not a big IP or anything like that.
And just this movie's just kind of a who's who of little appearances and cameos and stuff like that. You don't get too many of those. Okay, so that's good. So I am gonna go with Beverly Hills Cop for my next movie.
Great choice.
So yes, this was so we're talking 1984. This is like Eddie Murphy at the peak of his like comedy powers, like just becoming a movie star. So at that point he would have been coming off of 48 Hours and Trading Places. This was like his first big like solo starring vehicle, and this movie is it's hilarious still. Like it's still hilarious, which is not easy to do because there are a lot of comedies that, and that's no disrespect to them, but there are a lot of comedies now from the 70s and 80s that haven't aged particularly well. And it's you know, just because the evolution of, you know, humor and kind of how American audiences are tuned into different things, but Beverly Hills Cop is still funny. And there's times that, you know, there's ad lib lines and things like that, and there's times as you can tell that like I don't know how the actors on set kept it together.
What's
going on. It's just, I think Eddie Murphy is just, he's the man in that movie. Charismatic, and like, you know, the performances where everybody else clicks. Beverly Hills Cop 2 is actually a better action movie, I think.
Yeah.
Tony Scott came in and directed that one. But I think
rest in peace to Tony Scott.
Tony Scott. But the first one I think is a better overall movie, like as far as in terms of how it just flows and how it works. So that's my pick.
Okay, well, listen, from one Black comedian who ventured into movie stardom to another Black comedian who was in some movies, I'm going with 2002's sleeper hit, Undercover Brother.
Undercover Brother. I knew that's what you were gonna say.
Listen, man, so for those of our viewers who are watching who may be of the Caucasian persuasion, I hope that you hear this and don't take offense, but sometimes I have no idea what y'all are up to. And I think Undercover Brother nails that type of commentary flawlessly. I mean, it works as a parody of the spy genre. It works as a sort of loving tribute to like the blaxploitation era. And the pairing of Eddie Griffin, Dave Chappelle, Chi McBride, Anjanou Ellis, who, listen, this woman needs an Oscar, and she is great as Sister Girl.
Yeah, she is.
And then you throw in Neil Patrick Harris and Denise Richards, like,
we get a little Billy D. Williams.
Listen, Billy D. Williams as like pre-Barack Obama who decides he's gonna invest in like KFC.
Yeah.
And and some of those bits, like when he puts on the glasses to teach him everything about white people, and they quiz him by asking him about Friends.
Like top notch.
Bro.
This is also when Chris Kattan was everywhere too.
Chris Kattan. Oh man, listen, I love this movie so much. I think it's actually aged pretty well. I like the commentary aspect of it has made it age much better than it probably should have.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle, his bits are still hilarious. And I think that, listen, Malcolm Lee, who is Spike Lee's cousin, I believe, directed this. And he did a great job directing, like, you know, the sort of smaller scale action scenes too. So to me, this is a movie that really does deliver in all the ways that it needs to. And no offense to the Wayans brothers who do a bunch of great parodies, but like this feels like more of a movie than a lot of the stuff that they were doing, which I still love, but
it is. Yeah, I would definitely say this is more of a cohesive movie than a lot of stuff, because there's a lot of theirs, and don't get me wrong, I love it. A lot of theirs is just a string of jokes. Yeah, but this is like actual, like it has a story. To it. Okay, that is a good pull, man.
Yeah, man.
Really... Okay, so we going back to me now. Okay, so I am still keeping it on Eddie Murphy kick.
Okay.
My 17th pick, I'm going here with Boomerang.
Classic.
So yes, this is it's a shame that this movie like bombed. Like it didn't do well. I won't say necessarily bomb, but it didn't do great at the box office.
That, and I believe Life also, like, for whatever reason, didn't find an audience in the theaters. Yeah, which is funny because they're both like within the Black community. They're both they're like top shelf. Harlem Nights is another one. Like it didn't do that well, and a lot of Black people love Harlem Nights. But yeah, Boomerang. So you know, Eddie Murphy is for anybody that doesn't know, is like this really suave and debonair like executive with this I forget if it's a fashion company or a magazine. It's like something. I think it's a magazine. I think it's a magazine. I think it is a magazine. We're gonna get roasted for not. Yeah, I know, man. I knew it until I just thought about it just then, and now. But yeah. So he's Mr. Smooth. He's the ladies' man, and can kind of have any woman he wants. And then Robin Givens, or Robin Givens' character, she starts there,
and he realizes like all of his tricks that he's used to wooing women with do not work on her like at all. And then she kind of starts playing him, which is, you know, something he's not used to. So the story kind of plays out from there. But I love this movie. Like I think it's another one that a lot of the comedy in it still holds up.
Absolutely.
You got great kind of supporting actors in it. Martin Lawrence is in it, David Allen Greer, early career Halle Berry.
Tisha Campbell is also in this, right? Yes.
Yep. Oh my gosh,
Grace Jones. Oh man,
like it is funny. Lila Rashawn is another one. Yep, she's in it as well. So it's got like kind of all-star cast. And yeah, like I said, I think it's still a funny movie. I think the romantic bits work as well, like because the actors. I mean, you got good-looking people. Like it's, you know, it's a movie full of good-looking people. John Witherspoon is another one. Is in it as well. So yeah, so it's I think it's a great little kind of romantic comedy. I wish it would have done better, but it, you know, it still does seem to have kind of a audience, a hardcore fan, so I can appreciate that.
Now it's since been rebooted as a series.
Yeah, I think it is showing like T plus maybe or B regular BT. I'm not sure which one now.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
I haven't seen it yet because I hold this so near and dear. I don't want to see it messed up.
I have not seen it either, but I'm trying to get a job in the film industry, so I'm not going to say why I haven't seen it. Anyway, so if we're going from Boomerang, I guess it makes sense for me to maybe go with another 90s staple, and that is nothing like Boomerang, Rumble in the Bronx.
Ooh, okay.
I have to listen. I think my brother and I and my sister, I mean, my sister's the less geeky of all of us, but like my sister was right there with us. I think we went through like a summer where we just like watched all of those Jackie Chan movies like on repeat, especially because, you know, like a bunch of his stuff was starting to get re-released in America. And like now you could start to see more of what you got flashes of in some of his movies. And to me, Rumble in the Bronx was always the most memorable. I think Legend of the Drunken Master might be the best of that bunch.
Yeah.
But Rumble in the Bronx is just like insane. I mean, you get to see Jackie Chan sort of like at like the height of like what he does well, using the environment, the hand-to-hand combat, the stunt coordination. He jumps from one parking lot to a balcony of another building, and he the gang that he's going against is like they're psychotic, but like he steals a Lamborghini and a sword and takes down the street sweeper or whatever. Like this movie is ridiculous in all the ways that it should be, and it's hard to hate any of it because Jackie Chan is in his element. And listen, he's fantastic. He's funny, he's charming, and he's kicking ass, which is all you need.
Yeah. No, that is a good pull. That actually, I probably wore that VHS out like as a kid. Like I watched that a million times. I can still remember the previews that came on before because they would have previews of his other movies on there, like Super Cop and stuff. So yeah, the Rumble in the Bronx is a good one. The thing that really blows my mind about that movie, he was like 40 when he made that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, there's a tendency, I guess, to think, you know, because we got him late, you know.
Yeah.
What I mean? I guess there's a tendency to kind of think like, yeah, like when he was like in his prime, like when that came out, and then you know a few years later we got Rush Hour, but it was like he was already in his 40s.
Yeah.
So
wow. I mean, I guess maybe I knew that, but like hadn't really stopped to consider it. But that's crazy.
It's crazy, and he was still moving like that and doing that stuff. That is a good one. I like that. All right. I guess because I was in the romantic comedy kind of.
Okay.
When I hit this is the last one. This is it.
Hey, listen, bring it on.
So my next one is gonna be Brown Sugar.
Ooh.
2002. So we got Taye Diggs, Sanaa Lathan, Queen Latifah, Mos Def, Boris Kojo.
Yes.
So yeah, a movie I really like because it functions. Not only is it like a romantic comedy, but it also functions as a love letter to hip hop, which I think is really cool in the way that they integrated that into the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also, I hate this. I always mess his name up because it was directed by Rick
Famuyiwa.
Yes. Which he's gone on to do some, great things, of course, later on. But
yeah,
I really ended up digging this film, just because, like, I think the two leads, Sanaa Lathan and Taye Diggs, have really good chemistry.
Yes, they do.
The comedy, I think, works in it. Like I said, the hip hop elements, and it's a better love story than Love and Basketball is, which is it's good to see Sanaa Lathan like have do better for herself.
Listen, I was terrified for what you were gonna say because there are legions of women who are ready to strike if you negatively compare any of these movies. Like, there are women I know who I can't say anything negative about Love and Basketball because it'll
set them off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's take a moment here because I love Love and Basketball. Like,
it's a good movie.
I love it as a film, but the mechanics of her and Q's relationship are not good. Like, it's just not good.
It's pretty unhealthy.
It is. I mean,
pretty unhealthy.
This woman asked him to play for her heart, and he dunks on her to win the game. Like, completely uncalled for, unnecessary. But anyway, so yeah, so I think the cast functions well, and it's also I like it because it's a pretty feel good like story. Like, yeah, it has a little bit of the they are not going to be with each other, and they're off kind of doing their own things. But it doesn't really take time to like just wallow in that and be sad. And then it comes, of course, comes together all at the end. So yeah, it's another movie I really enjoy.
I will add one last note on Brown Sugar. The song that Mos Def's character raps, which is an actual Mos Def song, one of the most underappreciated Kanye West beats ever.
That is a good Kanye West beat.
That Norman Connors sample. Listen, if you're watching and you don't know about it, get into it.
That is a good one. I also want to say I'm trying to quickly double check it here, but I think Erykah Badu's "Love of My Life," I think it came from that soundtrack.
Yes, it did.
Yes. So yeah. So that's so if you guys love that song, you have that movie to thank for.
Hey man, that soundtrack was flames.
It was a good soundtrack.
Okay. I will go with a film. It's got romantic comedy elements to it. It is of a similar era. But the people look totally different. And that, of course, is Mean Girls. I remember when this came out. Our freshman year of high school, and the trailers, I mean, how good could it be? But this thing is hilarious. It is so sharp. It is super witty, and it's aged really well. And now that Tina Fey and Amy Poehler have gone on to do other great things, like, this is a really great sort of look back at like just how funny they could both be. I mean, this whole cast is golden. Like, Amanda Seyfried might be like the best find of this entire movie, but this movie just works, man. And it has aged really well. And on Wednesdays we wear pink. I mean, that is, there are just some bits from this movie that have really endured. And so it's something that is immensely rewatchable. So yeah, this one very recently jumped into like my top 20 favorite movies.
Gotcha. No, that's a good pull. And like you said, it's kind of become. It just seems like infinitely quotable. Like
Yeah.
the more and more time has passed from it, and like you
Mhm.
said, um, and you got like the every time I see toaster strudel, like
Yes.
I think of that.
Yes.
Think of this
Hmm.
movie. So yeah, Mean Girls is a good one. Yeah, Stop Trying to Make Fetch Happen is
Hmm.
whenever I see like something like they keep making like Robin Hood movies, and I'm like, yeah, man, stop trying to make fetch happen. Like
Oh
we
yes. Oh yes.
so that
That
is a
and King
good one.
Arthur movies.
Yes, yeah, they do not seem to find audiences. They do not for
Yeah.
yeah. That is a good pull. So I am going to switch up here a little bit. So my next one is gonna be Man on Fire from 2004,
Ooh.
the Denzel one. So yes, so that I think the since the first time I saw it, I think this instantly became like one of my favorite movies. And we had already talked about R.I.P. Tony Scott, so we got to
Yeah.
throw it up again. R.I.P. to Tony Scott. Was definitely a very gifted action director. He certainly had his own style and visual flair, which it didn't work all the time, but this is one of the movies where it works. Like it works really well. So for those who don't know, Denzel is like an ex like hitman assassin type of deal, who's a bodyguard to Dakota Fanning, and this is down in Mexico. And so he's, supposed to protect her and all this. And he's, kind of, like I said, with the whole ex assassin, hitman, whatever, like he's really burnt out and everything. And then protecting this little girl, like gives him like a new, like lease on life. Not to spoil anything, but, it ends up being a situation where Denzel has to go, use his particular set of skills and kind of do what he does best. And I think it's a really good action movie. Has a lot of heart in it. Is one of the only movies that I've seen that has made me cry before, like when it gets to the end.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I give it credit for that.
Listen, man, I remember going to see that on its opening weekend, and I was not ready. And
Mhm.
I've learned, I learned a lot about Tony Scott as a filmmaker after that movie, and so like
Mhm.
even then, Man on Fire is kind of like that was an interesting sort of film for him to tackle. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's one of my favorite Denzel performances. It's one that
Yeah,
I feel
definitely.
like it's weird. I remember a lot of critics not enjoying that at the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
Same with Book of Eli. Like, for some
Yeah.
reason, those movies where Denzel has to get super violent, other than Training Day, like it seems
Yeah.
like critics are not quite in love with those. But I wonder
Mhm.
if those same critics would feel differently today.
That's a good question. Yeah, especially I think especially today, since that style of movie is so in vogue,
Hmm.
they kind of, the vigilante one man army
Yeah,
revenge story. So it might be looked at a little bit different, but yeah, I think Denzel gives a great performance in that movie. Um,
and Mark Anthony plays her father in that,
he
correct?
does, yeah. Yep, he's good in as well. Christopher Walken, so it's like
Oh,
a
that's
nice
right.
little. Yep,
Christopher
it's nice.
Walken is in that.
Yes, yeah.
Good call, man. Okay, I will go with something on the sillier side.
Mm,
This is a film we've talked about it before. It is near and dear to my heart. I don't care what the world has to say about it. I will defend it till the ends of the earth. And that, of course, is a film from one of my favorite directors. His name is Justin Lin, and that film is Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. I I could write essays about how much I love this film. It is.
mm,
I love that franchise. They're going a little off the rails. They might need
mm,
to do their science homework and come on back down to earth, no
Yeah.
pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it says everything, that it's the only film in that 10 movie franchise that is actually about street racing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that it uses its setting of Japan to be like kind of a kung fu movie. I mean, it is very much in the vein of like a Karate Kid movie or something like that, where the main character has to learn to be good at this thing. And it has some of the most exciting racing sequences that this franchise has. Justin Lin utilizing his friendship with Sung Kang. He introduces us to Han, who come on now.
Yep.
They get into it with the Yakuza. They street race down a mountain. The soundtrack is incredible. I remember going to see this movie in 2006 thinking, okay, come on, it'll be all right. But like, how good could it be? And I came out and I was like, I want 5 more of these things. And thank the Lord, we actually got more than 5 more. And I think that if you never saw any of the Fast and Furious movies, I think that this would actually be a great introduction into the series. You don't need to know who any of the previous characters are. You don't need to know the story of like Brian going undercover. Like, this movie does so much with relatively little, and it makes great use of a cast that, I mean, Shad Moss is a legend, but thespian he is not. I mean, I could go for days, man. I mean, I really love how this thing looks, how it moves. I love that it has become sort of this centerpiece with how the franchise has gone. Yeah, man. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift is great. And I don't know what won Best Picture the next year, but I would listen. I would put my money on Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift being better than that movie. That much I know.
That is bold. That is a very bold. It's a very bold statement. But I can get that, because I know a lot of people kind of look at that one as kind of the redheaded stepchild, I guess, of the series in a lot of ways. But you're right, as far as like a lot of the premise itself, it is the movie that actually like is about street racing, like for the most part. So yeah, that's okay. So that's a good okay. Let's see that. All right. So I'll say for my next one, I am gonna go with another beloved crime movie. I guess. Since you talked about having the Yakuza on there, a mob movie is Goodfellas.
Yes.
It's another pick.
Yes.
So I talked earlier about how Heat is like a flawless movie in my opinion. I think this is another one. I think this is about as pitch perfect of a motion picture as you can get. Like the story flows perfectly. Martin Scorsese was really, I mean, I don't say hitting his stride, because he, had already done Raging Bull and Taxi Driver and stuff. And but it was, I don't know, it felt like he went to another level, I guess, when this movie came out. The cast is just great. Ray Liotta, first and foremost, rest in peace to him. Yep, he and Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci are perfect.
Man.
And Lorraine Bracco.
Yes.
and then this is kind of one of those movies, similar, like you were saying with Heat, is one of those that films afterwards and even TV with like The Sopranos, like you can really see its DNA like in
everywhere.
There. Yeah. So even with Scorsese's follow-up film, which I think he did Casino after this, like you can still see, and I believe it had the same writer with based on.
Yeah, I think so. And following up on that, Wolf of Wall Street to me is so much like Scorsese going, yeah, I should probably try and do Goodfellas again.
Yeah.
This time, it's not about the mob.
Yeah, it's about people in Wall Street. But yeah, it's another movie that it functions like the structure is very similar because it has, you know, kind of the up and coming rise to power, and then you have the middle where, you know, everything evens out, it's good and everything's going great, and then the bottom falls out, you know, by the time you get to the third act.
Yeah.
And it's very much where it feels almost like it's glorifying the lifestyle to a certain extent earlier on, and then, you know, it gets to the end and it's like, well, this is where it gets you. Like this is how it gets you. So yeah, so that's my pick. I think if it wasn't for probably you know, a couple of films, The Godfather Part 1 and 2, this is probably the best mob movie ever made. If those two movies don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue, man. I mean, and it's wild just how much you can still borrow from that movie, and it's like, oh, of course, like that scene where they go into the restaurant and the voiceover is like introducing all the guys.
Oh yeah, it's perfect, and it's the one shot, and it just it's perfect.
Yeah, man. I love it. And in that vein of Mr. Scorsese, I will go with the film of his that anytime it's on, I have to watch. And that, of course, is The Departed, which I think, you know, it's funny that you mentioned Goodfellas being Scorsese sort of hitting another level relative to the classics he had already delivered. I think that The Departed is one of those movies that just like, the stars kind of aligned for him, right? He was sort of in the middle of building his working relationship with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And Leo's great in The Departed. Matt Damon was sort of graduating from working with Soderbergh, becoming Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, being independent of Ben Affleck, and he works really well in The Departed.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin had started to sort of hit his career renaissance. He's great in the film. And Mark Wahlberg, I mean, that role almost got him an Oscar, which is just like insane to think. But I love, and of course, Jack Nicholson gives like one of his best outings. And it's a very different role from like the villain that he had done before. Like, he's not the funny, sort of silly Joker that he was with Tim Burton, but like he's like a real life. Holy crap! Like this dude is nothing to play with. So yeah, I remember that coming out, and I remember winning it. I remember when it finally won Scorsese his Oscar, which a lot of people felt he should have gotten with Goodfellas or Raging Bull. You know, I mean, The Departed, it still holds up, and it's a remake of a Hong Kong film, Infernal Affairs, a film that I admit I've still not seen, but I hear great things. But yeah, The Departed is proof that, you know, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. When you're a great filmmaker and you get the right material, you can just make it sing.
Yeah. Yep. And absolutely shocking ending. Like
that, man.
Just, an ending that just smacks you in the face. Like there's no way that you'll see it coming. Until it happens. So yeah, that is a great pull. And that movie works so well just because of the, you know, also because of the parallels of everything, like between, you know, Matt and Leonardo DiCaprio's character. So yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, so I guess we're in the crime movie stretch of this. So I'll keep it going. So my next pick is gonna be similar to, like you said, is the movie whenever I see it's on somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes left in it or an hour, what have you. I will sit down and watch it, and that is Scarface.
Ooh, De Palma.
Yes,
that's De Palma, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, Brian De Palma says Scarface. Of course, stars Al Pacino, Stephen Bauer. Great. It is another one of those movies that did not do that well. Like when it originally came out, critics were not feeling it. It didn't do that great at the box office. A lot of people thought that, because you're talking about at that point, Pacino was like a made man in Hollywood. Like he had already done like all of these great films, and a lot of people kind of felt like this was almost kind of beneath him a little bit, like a step back for him.
Yeah.
And then it's one of those that kind of got reassessed a bit later, especially thanks to his presence like with rap artists like in the hip hop world. And it's just kind of, it got kind of like this cultural reassessment, and people, you know, came back around to being like, yeah, this is pretty good. And yeah, I like it. It's one of those movies that's at times just like so over the top, but in the same vein, because if anybody has ever seen any documentaries or anything about like what Miami was like at that time, this movie isn't that far off, like as kind of crazy as it seems at different times. Of course, because you know the movie is about Al Pacino plays Tony Montana, who we basically see from going like low level thug to criminal empire on top of the drug trade. And yeah, like I said, a lot of that stuff, Oliver Stone himself was like battling a cocaine addiction like while he was writing it. So yeah, and a lot of the stuff that they pulled was stuff that was going on at that time in Miami during, you know, the heyday of kind of when cocaine was exploding there, and you had the Cuban immigrants coming in, and a bunch of, you know, stuff that was going on at that time. And it came out to what is a very entertaining movie. Remake, sort of. I guess you can maybe more so call it a reimagining of the Howard Hawks, I believe it is, film, original. But yeah, I think it's a great gangster movie and classic.
And there has been a lot of talk about this version of Scarface being remade as well, right?
There is. I hope it doesn't. I mean, almost seems kind of hypocritical to say with itself being a remake, but I had similar feelings about like The Thing. Like you could technically see it as a remake, but I was hoping it wouldn't get touched. But we see.
Yeah. I mean, I think Scarface is one of those movies that it's a time capsule. You kind of alluded to like how it hits on what was happening at the time, and it really does feel like someone's like, yeah, welcome to the 80s. Like, but yeah, I mean, and obviously it might be Pacino's most iconic role, which when you think about the career of Al Pacino, like you could pull a lot of them.
Yeah.
And obviously Scarface is still being referenced, hell, in rap songs today. Like,
yeah. Yep.
But a good pull, man. And I remember the first time I watched that all the way through, I was like, what? There's no way this movie is there's no way they're gonna be more extra than this. Oh, look. Oh. Yeah. Cool. On that note, where do I go from here? I decline these calls coming through my computer. That's what I do. And then I transition to another classic. It's not a crime movie, but it is one that I think has really sort of stamped its image in the minds of everyone who has seen it. And that is the Shyamalan himself. He's making it onto the list with The Sixth Sense.
Oh, that's a good pull. Yeah, that's good.
And it's so interesting when you think about when this film came out. I mean, The Sixth Sense came out in 1999. The Matrix came out the same year. The Blair Witch Project came out the same year. Fight Club came out the same year. And this movie from a relatively unknown filmmaker at the time. I mean, he was only really known for writing Stuart Little at the time.
Yeah.
And it had Bruce Willis and it had Haley Joel Osment, and I love this film so much. And I think it's a perfect movie. Like I have tried to watch it again, like knowing the reveal. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but knowing what happens, it's a film that still holds up, man. And M. Night Shyamalan was so smart to play with how audiences perceive presentation in film. And the use of color is great. The cinematography is great. The performances are great. I mean, this is one of Bruce Willis's best acting performances. Toni Collette, my girl Toni
Collette. She's great in this movie. She probably should have got nominated for something.
Absolutely. And this film, I think, went on to be nominated for Best Original Screenplay. Haley Joel Osment is great. And when this film gets scary, it gets really effing scary.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know we are sort of in this phase where we see M. Night Shyamalan's name on a trailer and go, I don't know, but listen,
yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan, he has won me back. Just for everyone out there, you can hate all you want. The Shyamalan has won me back, and The Sixth Sense, his best film in my opinion, a perfect film, a classic, one that needs to be studied by everybody. I love it so much, man. There was no question about if this would end up on this list.
That is a good one. Yeah, Sixth Sense is great. Still, I was watching it just recently. Like it you're right. It still holds up. It's still a great movie, and it's still one of those movies that, as you said, like even knowing the twist, like if you looking at, when you watch it back and there are the context clues to, that the twist is going to happen. Even still, like it's still amazing that it's so well executed, and even things that kind of tip the hat to that, it's still not like an obvious tell of what's of what's coming. The biggest thing I would say I always think about with The Sixth Sense is there's a movie that had the unfortunate was in the unfortunate position of coming out the same year and having a sort of semi similar premise, which is Stir of Echoes, that gets criminally overlooked just because like Sixth Sense just like overshadows it.
Yeah,
that's another like really good movie that just has the misfortune of being like in the wrong place at the wrong time almost.
You mean like Ants coming out at the same time as Bug's Life?
Bug's Life, yeah. Yep. very similar. Okay, so next one I am gonna go with another classic here, science fiction. I don't think we've had science fiction really on here yet. It's gonna be RoboCop. So
okay.
Definitely a favorite of mine. Saw this movie way too early. I shouldn't have seen it when I did. I was probably like about 6, 7. I think we had the VHS. And this movie, so Paul Verhoeven directed it, came out back in 87 and was just, it really came at a time when audiences got just a lot of great like sci-fi like that kind of mid to late 80s. So you talk about like you get like Back to the Future, Terminator, Predator, you got this, Aliens, like the original Aliens. So it was a great time for science fiction, action, horror, like all that stuff. And RoboCop is one of those ones that it's great because it works on so many levels. Like, of course, there's the satire that's running throughout the whole thing, which is a big thing with Paul Verhoeven. So it's big in this, Total Recall, Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah.
So and it's got the violence is so over the top and almost to the point of being just like obnoxious. But the movie does have a heart, and it really does have a good story to it, and especially kind of questioning like what it means to be human, and kind of what humanity is, and like what happens like if that's lost, like can it be regained, like those type of things. So it takes all that, just kind of mushes it all into this ball, and then throws over the top action in, and it came out and it was a classic, and it's set in Detroit. So I mean,
it is so synonymous with Detroit that they want to put a RoboCop statue here.
Yeah. Even though it was filmed in like Dallas, but I mean it's cool.
I mean, you know, it happens, man. It happens.
Mm.
And it's interesting. It's interesting that you're pulling a film from that time, a science fiction film from that time, because my next film is another science fiction film that was a little around there, and that, of course, is Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Ooh, okay.
Um, what I mean, everything that could be said about it has already been said, but James Cameron, to sequel to Terminator, it is a superior sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see this film at a midnight show
Ooh.
maybe 4 years ago.
Okay.
And it was the first time I had seen it on the big screen. Man, it is insane to think that James Cameron not only pulled off a lot of the stunts. I mean, he didn't do the stunts, but like, it's crazy that they were able to pull off so much of that and get it in camera. Like,
Yeah.
I think this is a film that, like, you know, I've heard people say that they don't like watching old movies,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
when they think of old movies, they think of movies where you can sort of see, like, oh, like, look how weird the special effects are. But I mean, the way that movie is staged, the way everything is lit, I mean, yeah, it's clearly CGI, but like,
Yeah.
what they do with the T-1000,
Mm.
man, I mean, and he's a great villain.
Yes.
And they took a wonderful concept in the first film, flipped it on its head. Yeah, man. I mean, it is relentless. It is a classic. It's got the quotables. I mean, and it also is, like, aside from like the great action set pieces, it is like a wonderful bit of science fiction. Like, it really works on that level as well. And so, you know, I think it's sort of the gift and the curse. Like, James Cameron made this masterpiece with Terminator 2, and like, the franchise kept going, but James Cameron was like, yeah, I have boats to sink.
Yeah. And man, and he got obsessed with them boats and
Yes.
underwater. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's one of the greatest sequels of all time, one of the greatest action movies of all time. And it's funny you mentioned the like capturing and doing all that stuff in camera. It's a funny story. I don't know if you know this, but for anybody that's seen the movie or maybe hasn't, so there's a sequence where a helicopter goes like under a freeway overpass.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think the DP on the movie refused to shoot it because he basically told James Cameron, like, somebody's gonna die like doing that. Like, you can't fly a helicopter under an overpass like that. And I refuse to like capture somebody's death on camera. So James Cameron like shot that sequence himself.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like that's how much
wow.
that's how badly like he wanted to get it. And it is, and then there's the other stunt where, you know, Arnold, well, the T-800, Arnold's character, you know, goes and hops out the truck and jumps on the hood of the other truck.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Like, that's still one of the most insane stunts I've like ever seen, like, in my life. Like, it looks like it's simple, but it's not. Like, because any miscalculation, like, that stunt guy could have died, like, and got run over. So yeah, like, it's one of the greatest, and is probably, when you talk about all-time great sequels, maybe Empire Strikes Back, but usually this is the first one that comes to mind for me.
Yeah. And it's another sequel James Cameron did that, like, people hold in such high regard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I don't know if the consensus is that Aliens is a better movie than Alien, but people genuinely recognize Aliens as being like another great
film. Yeah, they look at it as at least it's been almost like shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah,
like, in terms of being a great movie. So yeah, I agree with that here. Okay, so I will follow that up with something that is kid friendly. The most recent entry on my list so far is going to be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Ah, yes. I was wondering if this one would show up.
So yes, so first uh superhero movie list on my parents here. Yeah, like this movie is another, I think, flawless movie. Like I think it does what it's intended to do so well. And it's one of those movies I think like the more you watch it, like the more you can catch. Like
Yeah.
because there's so much happening, but there are so many little Easter eggs and lines of dialogue and things like that that you can catch that you might have not seen in previous viewings. I think all of the jokes work, like all the humor works.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is really crazy because I kind of wrote this movie off like initially, because coming out at the time that it did, Sony has the rights to Spider-Man, but they've got the whole deal with Marvel Studios. They're putting out Venom, they're doing this and that, and then they like dropped this animated movie, and I'm just kind of like, what are they doing? But of course I want to see it because I love Spider-Man, so of course I'm gonna go. And it ended up instantly becoming one of my favorite movies, and I think one of the best superhero movies ever. I don't think that's like hyperbolic to say that.
Yeah. This film was, I don't think anybody, like, I remember being excited for the movie. Like, I remember seeing the trailer and being like, wow, they're really going there. Okay, cool. Like, I'm down. I don't think anybody was ready for this to not only be a great film, I don't think people were ready for how great it would stand up in a packed year. Like, 2018, not only did you have Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, hell, I mean, you got a quality Aquaman movie that year, right? Like,
yeah.
But then you also had The Incredibles 2 come out that year, and it broke all these records for an animated film. And Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse came out and completely upended what people expected their end of the year list to be. I mean,
yeah,
that movie came through and basically swept all the animation awards throughout award season, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it works as an origin story for Miles Morales. It works as a celebration for Spider-Man, not just as a character, but like his cinematic history. It is doing something forward thinking with animation. It's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of humor. And I think it's a perfect example of what happens when you really do decide to invest in the right character. And Miles Morales, ever since he debuted, was one that people were kind of like, this is cool, but
yeah,
can Miles really go toe to toe with any of these others? And I think this film really did prove, yeah, he could do that.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, not to say that he wasn't popular before, but I definitely think the uptick in popularity of the character is thanks to this movie.
Absolutely.
Like I don't know if we get the Miles Morales edition of the Spider-Man game if this movie doesn't come out. And
absolutely.
So, I mean, and maybe so. Maybe they were going to do it anyway, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And it is a shame that I don't think Stan Lee, who did do a voice cameo in the film, I don't think he made it to see the final film.
Yeah, that is sad because it's the best representation of the character.
Yeah,
we've gotten. So
yeah, well, I'm so glad that you brought Spider-Man into this because we can go on to my next film. It is another Spider-Man movie. It's not animated though.
Okay.
But it's one that I love endlessly, and that is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I just, Tobey Maguire, what a good dude. I've never met him, but I hope he's a good person. Because, man, this movie has so much going for it. It's got so much heart. And Sam Raimi just, I don't know how he did it. Like, the now iconic sort of train sequence in the film, apparently they shot it before they finished the script.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things they shot, I think they said.
And I mean,
which is ridiculous. Like,
yeah.
to think about. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not setting up a shared universe. It's not, some deconstruction of the character. Like, no, it's a really good movie about what it means to be Peter Parker. And Sam Raimi gets to flex all of his different sort of creative flares. When Doc Ock sort of comes to life, it goes full Evil Dead. The action is great. The character moments are great. The humor works. The scene of Tobey Maguire trying to recreate the jump. Yeah, man, I just, it's wild. Like it's weird. The superhero genre has evolved so much since Sam Raimi was doing these Spider-Man films. And I always think back to like just some of the simple things that he was doing here that like it would feel bold if you saw this in like the next Captain America movie or the next Shazam movie. Maybe not Shazam. Those movies are pretty silly, but like the next Aquaman movie. Like there is so much sincerity in this material, and yeah, he's corny and yeah, he's kind of a nerd, but also that's what makes him lovable. And it's I love it, man. And I think that Sam Raimi was paired up with the right material here. I think that all the actors came to play. Alfred Molina is a standout here. J.K. Simmons is great. Yeah. Danny Elfman's score. I mean, come on now.
No, that is a great pick. Yeah, I can still remember seeing that movie opening weekend, along with the original.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember seeing that opening weekend, and just kind of being blown away at the time a little bit, because I didn't know what to expect going in, if it was going to be better. And at that time, I think kind of one of my favorite superhero sequels was X-Men 2, like X-Men United.
Yeah.
But this came in and just topped that. So yeah, that's definitely one I do have great memories with as well. So that is a good pick. So I am gonna stay in because at Spider-Verse, my previous one, I'm gonna stay in 2018.
Okay.
With a movie that just became instant classic. I think I decided this was one of my favorite movies while I was still watching it. Like hadn't finished it. And that's gonna be Upgrade.
So
yes,
Leigh Whannell.
Yes, Leigh Whannell's Upgrade. So starring Logan Marshall Green. So he, for anybody who doesn't know, he basically is a like normal everyman that ends up getting injured, and there's this piece of technology that's invented that is able to make him like better and stronger than he was before. And yeah, chaos kind of ensues like after that. That I think one of the reasons that this became like one of my favorite movies, especially so quickly, is because if I could make movies, like if somebody gave me money to make movies, this is exactly like something that I would make. Like it's action movie, science fiction, like cyberpunk, has a little bit of kind of body horror in it, like aspect to it. Yeah, and I thought it had some really creative and inspired action sequences, and the fact that it looks so good, and does a lot with its premise, and it was made for like nothing essentially. Yeah. I mean, compared to how movie budgets are today, like it wasn't that high, so that had me excited for whatever Leigh Whannell would do next. Which was like Invisible Man. But yeah, it made him one of my favorite directors to kind of watch for. And yeah, like I love that movie.
And Upgrade is one of those movies that I think is a perfect example of like someone who really understands the genre they're working in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Leigh Whannell and James Wan sort of had lightning in a bottle with Saw, and go on to collaborate with other things like Insidious. But him taking the approach to direct this was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But no, he it's very much in his wheelhouse. And I'm with you, man. I don't care what he is directing. If it is a Leigh Whannell film, I'm there.
Yeah, so I'm checking out. So yeah, great. I think it's you don't get too many movies like modern day that feel like they would be like a good midnight movie, like a good kind of grindhouse style movie. And this is definitely, it falls into that.
Yeah, I imagine that if Leigh Whannell was pitching this to studios now, they would be quick to try and put it on Netflix.
Oh yeah, this would definitely be a straight to streaming type of project if it was being made today, which is kind of a shame, but that's how it goes.